We're going to demonstrate, Claire and I here, how to perform a sliding board transfer from a wheelchair to a mat table and then back again from mat table to wheelchair. Again, your surfaces may not be set up exactly like this when you're doing this transfer with someone. You could potentially transfer from a couch or depending on if you're in home health or a hospital bed, you might have a height difference in surface. Ideally, you do want your transfer surface, if you can pull it off, a little bit lower than where you're coming from, but if that's not always something that you're going to have the luxury of controlling. So in this case, our height surfaces are relatively similar. Claire's seat cushion here is almost at the same level as the mat table. And what I've done here is I've removed her armrest to her wheelchair. So if it is a wheelchair you're transferring from and the armrests are removable, you want to make sure they're out of the way. This wheelchair does not have a removable seat plate, but if she had leg rests that were removable, you would also want those out of the patient's way when you're completing this transfer. I'm currently sitting on a stool, but to complete the rest, I'm actually going to stand up. This can also be done if your height difference and compared to the patient's height or size allows you to sit on a stool. You can actually use a stool to complete the pivot portion of the transfer if you're still able to remain close to that patient's center of mass. In this case, I'm going to get the stool out of the way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell Claire, we're going to move over here to the table. We're going to use this board. One of the very important things about sliding board transfers, depending on the type of sliding board you're using, is making sure that the patient does not either reach around to grab on the underside of the sliding board or they reach around to grab on the inside of the handrest. During the transfer, they can actually pinch their fingers doing this, and it can also stop the progression of the transfer. So before we go, I'm going to have Claire, I'm going to kind of come over here, I'm going to help her lean just a little bit. And if she's able to help me, I do want her to help me out a little bit here. We also don't want to let go and let the patient fall over. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the sliding board. I like to start from the back and kind of wedge it in. You want to make sure for sure that it's at least under the first ischial tuberosity and pretty close to the second. If you were doing this with a guy, you would also want to make sure that they have the furniture, as we say, out of the way. This can certainly pinch. Also, this can become a problem if you are transferring a patient who has a wound or a sore. And very commonly, patients who are not able to move much on their own may have sacral wounds. There's potential ulcer development. You also may have people with poor skin quality. So you want to be very careful when you're positioning the board that you're not causing any skin irritation or breakdown. Okay, so now that I've got the board underneath her, what I'm going to have Claire do is I'm going to have her reach for her hand. I'm actually going to kind of turn her hand under a little bit just to give her a little bit more support. This also discourages her from reaching in and grabbing on the handle or grabbing on the outside of the board here. So we're going to have her here. Then what I'm going to have her do is we're going to have her lean over to this side, and I'm going to actually use her gait belt in this case, and I'm just going to slide. And then I'm going to have her move her hand just to the edge. We're going to slide again. And then she's going to move her hand all the way to the table. And then we're going to slide one more time. And she's all the way over. And we take the transfer board out, and we are good to go. Now going back to the chair looks exactly the same. You would still set the you'd set the board up exactly the same. Just whack your patient in the knee with the transfer board. You would set it up as far as positioning it underneath the ischial tuberosities and kind of the upper portion of the thigh here, so that their center of mass when they're scooting is pretty well supported on the transfer board. Where this becomes really important is if you've got someone who's larger, you want to make sure that they are well positioned on that board so they don't go sliding off on the floor.